We were all wrong about Palworld. Not only is it the most popular game in the world right now, but it's not even a Pokemon clone. Now initially this game was presented as Pokemon with guns, but honestly I've been playing for a long time and I haven't even gotten to a gun. I have been able to use a fox as a flamethrower though. Palworld is ridiculously popular right now. Between the co-op, the dedicated servers, the monsters themselves, and the survival RPG mechanics, this game might just be one of the best games I've ever played. And apparently 4 million other people agree. Hello world and all who inhabit it, it is I the Great Saiyaran, and Palworld is not a Pokemon clone. We'll get to the why of that throughout the video. Palworld was initially revealed to us in 2021. I was extremely hyped about it because I'm a Pokemon fan. Pokemon actually taught me how to read when I was 4. My brother loved playing it, I loved playing it, and other Pokemon-like games I enjoy as well. I played games like Coromon, Nexomon, and of course Digimon. But nothing quite scratched that itch like Pokemon did. That's partly because of nostalgia and partly because the games are actually pretty good within their genre. Compared to other games, they're meh. Palworld set out to address some of these things. Now, there are some huge differences between Palworld and Pokemon. For instance, battling. There isn't a dedicated set battle screen. I actually don't like that because even in Legends Arceus, which this game was more akin to, I feel like there was still that set battle area, that set battle screen that doesn't exist in Palworld. You just tell them to attack or they do it themselves. It's fine. Another big difference is this is an open world. There is no linearity to it. Linearity? Is that a word? Linearity? There's no linear gameplay. It's go out and do what you have to do and figure out for yourself. Now, Pokemon did experiment with this in Scarlet and Violet, and while it was a decent open world, it still was guided. Palworld, there is no guide. There's like a little bar at the top right that says tutorial, and it tells you some things you should do to progress, but once you're done with that, brother, I've been running around and exploring this world, but I still don't feel like I've seen all it has to offer, and it's been days. Now that's partly because of the tedious survival mechanics, but it's also because I didn't set up my base right to have my pals do all the work for me. So along with there being no turn-based combat period, there's this weird dynamic between you and the overworld bosses or dungeon bosses or boss battles that you may encounter. Once again, this is akin to Pokemon Legends Arceus, where there isn't you versus a boss or with a team of Pokemon or something. It's you versus a boss who's really strong, and you're running around the map trying to kill it with your mons or pals. Let me try to say that correctly for the video. Pals. They are pals. There's already enough controversy around this game and the designs of the pals, so I'm not going to call them Pokemon as well, even though they're really similar. So while you can go into different dungeons and explore those, you can also just fight these big overworld bosses that are just out and about, kind of like alpha Pokemon. Now these guys are extremely tough, but if you're skilled enough, you could probably take it down. Not only do your mons attack for you, you also have weaponry to your disposal. Like right now, I'm using the 3-shot bow. This uses 1 arrow, but shoots 3, so it's doing triple the damage. You could also get the fire bow or poison bow to do extra elemental damage. You can also have another pal in addition to your main pal doing damage for you. So honestly, there could be 3 waves of damage hitting your enemy. Now in the tutorial, there is this main boss battle, and it is tough. It says level 10, but honestly, I'd be like level 15. It took me so long to beat this electric gorilla thing. Also, I'm playing on mouse and key, and that's not my primary input, so I am finger fumbling a little bit, and that might be part of my personal issue. Now, while that boss was tough, I wasn't actually mad at it. I had to strategically think about how I want to approach this boss. At first, I was using my ice water pal, which was freezing him. That allowed me to get some free shots with my bow and slow him down. But he was electric, so he was destroying my poor little penguin. So I decided to use a grass dragon, a very strong grass dragon, but the electric gorilla thing was stronger. Eventually I went to a dungeon and caught myself a Fuddler. This pal was pure ground type and did super effective damage to the electric gorilla monkey thing. I think his name was Buzzy Bolt. I think that was his name. I don't know anybody's name really. I kind of do, but it's whenever I play a game that's not Pokemon, I don't necessarily remember all the names because like, is this really going to be a series? Is this really going to be something I need to know? This game is much tougher than most of the Pokemon games you may be used to. But what's really cool is you can customize the settings and make the game as easy or as hard as you'd like. I love when games give players the option. That's all we want, is the option. While the combat isn't as smooth as I'd like it to be, it's actually good enough to keep my attention and I actually enjoy it. And also, once you're able to ride your pals, you can use them to attack for you, like while you're riding around the overworld. It's sweet. I love it so much. Speaking of overworld, let's actually talk about the world. I'm not gonna say this is the prettiest game on the market, but it gets the job done. It's made in Unreal Engine and apparently uses a lot of like pre-made assets, so a lot of people are upset about that, but honestly, I don't care. I've played the 3D Pokemon games. This game looks better than those. It's fine. And while we're on the topic of reused assets, a lot of the pals in this game resemble Pokemon. That was very intentional. 1. Controversy sells games. 2. Pokemon are very recognizable and very marketable creatures. Even if someone has never watched or played Pokemon, if you show them a creature, they're probably gonna assume it's a Pokemon, and then you just take that asset and you flip it to your game. Yeah, people are gonna say it's Pokemon. It happens with all these Pokemon likes. While some of the designs can be unique, they're still based off some of the mons that you would see in a regular Pokemon game, because those mons are based off real life things or mythology or things that represent a certain culture or region that the game is based off of. This is technically an indie game. Of course, they're gonna piggyback off a huge successful game. That's what most indie games do. They just have the creative freedom to do it just a bit better. Because this game isn't running on Nintendo hardware, they can actually have an open world full of things to do. You can chop trees or mine stones for resources. You can talk to the NPCs and pals and attack them. You can find a nice quaint village and sell your pals for money. You can go to an enemy base and throw a pal sphere at a human and actually catch it. There's just so much you can do in this world, and I think that's what people like. My base is definitely function over fashion, but a lot of people like that aspect of the game too. I've seen people build 2- and 3-story buildings, but I'm not willing to tear down my base to do that. It just seems like a hassle to tear down my entire base just to make it look pretty, but I will eventually do it because I actually don't like the location of my base as much. Whether you're playing this on PC or Xbox, it's a pretty smooth experience with a few hiccups here and there because this is an early access game. I know it's wildly popular and it's still in early access. I do want to touch on the differences in the games though. The Game Pass version of Palworld is infinitely worse. You can't do simple things like rename yourself or rename your pals. You can co-op, but all the progress is saved to the host and not the people who actually are playing with you. There is absolutely no dedicated server support, and if you go to your technology tab and look at how everything's arranged, it's different for Steam players than it is Game Pass players, and I think it's a bit harder for Game Pass players. For instance, there's this feed bag, and you put food in that slot, and you can feed yourself instead of always being hungry. You just automatically feed yourself and your pals. For my friend Ayo, that was a level 6 item. For me, that was a level 12 ancient item, and you don't even get ancient points until you beat the biggest boss at the end of the tutorial, something I struggled to do for days. I'm not gonna say this was on purpose, but I can see financial reasons for it. If you give Game Pass a worse version, then people will buy it on Steam. Like my friend Ayo, who had it on Game Pass, saw that it was worse and then bought it on Steam. I'm just too cheap to rebuy it on Steam. The gameplay loop is very addicting. There's a day-night cycle, there's things to build and work on, and you're just always trying to get to the next level. So many games have done this well, like Ark, and this game clearly took inspiration from that. I am genuinely not mad at them. I almost feel bad that Palworld is being called a Pokemon clone. As someone who loves Pokemon and plays it every day, this game doesn't really remind me of Pokemon. There are certain aspects of the game that I see that they've taken as inspiration, but it's not as close to a Pokemon game as I thought it would be with the moniker Pokemon with guns. We were way off when it comes to this game. I thought it was going to be a meme, I'm not gonna lie, but the game's combat world and gameplay loop has actually roped me in a lot more than I actually thought I would. If you haven't given Palworld a try, I definitely would. Whether you buy it on Steam or have it on Game Pass, you're gonna have a great time. And you may actually learn something about yourself as to what you actually want from a game instead of what these big huge companies feed us. Support your local indies, that's all I can say. For more gaming reviews and overviews like this one, be sure to like, comment, subscribe, all the good stuff, and I'll catch you in the next one. Peace.